This video is sponsored by EA. Hi everyone, my name is Tanya. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new here. I am so unbelievably excited to be posting this video right now. You can see from the title, I got to work on some of the builds for The Sims 4 high school years. I was lucky enough to be asked by the Sims team to build a couple of the lots, actually 3 of them. And today I'm going to be sharing the full process, start to finish, of creating the Boba Tea and Thrift Shop. It's kind of like a combined lot in the world of Copperdale. And there was a lot of requirements for this lot and a general concept they wanted to go with. And I'm going to tell you right now, I was so in over my head and overwhelmed by the idea of one of my builds being in the game that I don't feel like what I submitted for our first review, which is what I'm working on now, was very good. It's kind of a weird shape. I was just trying to make something unique and I don't really like how it came out, but that's okay because we got to the end result in the end, and that's the most important thing. So let me read you a little bit about what the Boba Shop is supposed to be. It is in the town square section of Copperdale on a 20 by 20 lot. And there were a bunch of items that I needed to include in here, which is the thrift store retail rack, a retail counter. Also, those racks, I needed 4 of them. I needed 2 dining tables, 4 dining chairs, a coffee table, a sofa, the bubble tea counter, a microphone, wall speaker, waste disposal, toilet, and sink. So those are all the items that I needed to include. And it's a pretty small lot, and it had to be one building that was split up pretty well inside to actually be 2 different businesses that are working in the same building. So that was the challenge there, but I was so down to do this. It is such an honor to be able to create the first thrift store in The Sims 4 officially in the game. I've said for years my absolute favorite build I've ever done in The Sims 4 is one of my pawn shops and thrift store type builds. That is just such a huge passion of mine, doing that sort of build. And also, I grew up doing so much thrifting, so it's an honor, and I still can't believe that I got this opportunity. So I'm excited that I'm getting to share this now. So while the exterior changes a lot, I wasn't really happy with the shape. The interior, the general concept of the layout I'm going for here is pretty close to what I actually end up keeping, at least for parts of it. Not where the counters are. Well, I guess the bubble tea counter stays where it is. But the yellow blocky counter you see over there, that is the thrift counter that was actually not in the game for a really long time. I was just placing that down as a placeholder. That's what it looked like before it was ready to be placed, because I had a early access copy of the game, obviously, before it was finished. Most of the gameplay wasn't in there. There was a chunk of items that weren't in there as well. We would kind of get them in waves, every couple of weeks we'd be like, oh, yay, we have this new selection of items to choose from. And actually the first time that we got to play around and start working on builds, we didn't even have access to Copperdale. We just had access to the new items that were in so far. So it was definitely a process of trying to plan things out while you only have some of the assets and figure out your concept and go from there. But I thought this was a really cool build, and there was actually even a couple of items that weren't even in by the time we finished with our build, so they got added in a little bit later. So I'll show a little bit of that later on, or talk about that a little bit later on. But I'm just going through all the rugs now and trying to figure out how I want this to be situated. I actually really wanted to use this particular couch. It's a love seat, but it didn't count as a sofa because it's a love seat. So I didn't use it because I needed to have a 3-seater sofa in this house. Or not in this house, but in this build. So that does end up going away in the end. I also use a lot of placeholder wallpapers because the wallpapers that they had wanted and created for this particular build were not in yet. So I don't get those until way, way later. And so we're just doing the first version of the shop with some placeholder stuff and some things that change. Anyway, this is behind the retail counter. I was thinking about putting a bunch of these clothes back here. These are, of course, base game clothes. I do change what's back here later, and I really wanted it to feel thrifty, lots of random pieces of artwork. Also, I just realized I said I wanted it to feel ThrifTea. That's literally the name of this lot. This is the ThrifTea Boba Shop and thrift store, so that's really funny. But I just wanted to have all sorts of signs and furniture and random things you could thrift. I love going to thrift stores and consignment shops, and it was trying to capture that in here, but also go for this more like bubbly, colorful teen hangout spot that your Sims can go look for some clothes as well as get a bubble tea. And it was just a really interesting concept. It was quite a struggle to build this because in most of my builds, I use a lot of move objects and alt placement and, all of those things. But I was not allowed to use any cheats or alt placement or rotating to any degree other than, 90 degrees or directly diagonal 45. So it was definitely a challenge to have to stick to like the basics of the game and make sure this was as accessible as possible. I had to have plenty of space for Sims to route around. That was one of the biggest things. Also limiting the amount of wallpapers and floorings and things like that to be cognizant of performance. So there was just a lot to think about in the process of this build other than just how it was going to look. It needed to be good to function on all PCs and, of course, look cute as well. Also, I needed to limit the amount of clutter, which was difficult because I love to clutter things. That's probably my favorite part of building, but that's okay. If it's actually in everyone's game and you can use it, that's the most important part. I also am just realizing earlier in this voiceover, I mentioned how I am prepping this for the first review. So how this works is we're given the materials we need to work on this, so access to the game, whatever assets are in, any kind of information that was told to us about what the lots need to be, items that are required, all of that sorts of stuff. And then we're given a deadline to submit our files for them to review. And then we have like a meeting for us to go over it and the team to kind of give us feedback on what they're seeing, whether it's like layout changes or color changes or just things that don't make sense, somebody else viewing it, like how they're perceiving the space. So we're working on everything for the first review. We'll be working on that for a while, but I will make sure to mention when we get to like past the first review and what those changes were that I needed to make going forward. And then there is a second review and then the final version, and I'll do a tour at the end of the version of ThrifTea that would be in your game if you grab the Sims 4 high school years. So working on the bathroom now, and I kept having to remind myself that this wasn't a residential lot because whenever I make bathrooms, I'm like, okay, shower and tub. No, just toilet and sink in here. And I didn't have enough space to use the new toilet stalls. So I just thought for this space, it made the most sense to just have a small bathroom. So that's what I ended up doing. I will be decorating that a little bit more, but right now I'm cluttering up a shelf and sadly all of that clutter goes away. I'm also playing around with the dressing rooms and deciding a little bit later that I'm going to add like some clutter on the floor in there too, like a pile of clothes. We got so much cool clutter with this pack, but that ends up going away too. There's just like some items that disappear in the final version, whether it's something I removed based on reviews or something the team removed for one reason or another before the game shipped, which I'm assuming is for performance because most of those things were like little clutter items. So there are a couple of changes from what I did into what's in the game, but they're very, very minor. Anyway, here I am still trying to figure out the front of the build, and I still don't know what's going on with the shape. I was trying to make it look unique and adding a bunch of items out front. I really wanted to include that. I know on a lot of like little thrift shops around me, right outside, there's usually a clothing rack for you to like look through some of the pieces to like entice you to come inside or have some like fun knickknacks. So I really wanted to incorporate that here. And since the whole area was like covered in brick and stuff, I, made a couple of spaces for trees. And here is where I am fixing it. This is after the first review and they were all like, what's going on with the shape? Can we round out these pieces and have them more be like bay windows? Also, the building is a little bit short. Could we expand that and make it taller? And I decided to have a top floor to achieve that instead of making the walls taller. So just figuring that out now, and I couldn't decide if I wanted it to be having the exact shape on the top or just have it straight on the top and have these little bump outs. And let me tell you, this was such a struggle because you can't use move objects or anything, which is totally fine. but for some reason, the game kept saying I was using move objects and it wouldn't let me place windows in certain areas. So it was very difficult to figure that out. And of course, with adjusting the windows in the front, I did have to adjust the floor plan. And I was trying to figure out what windows to put on top because I was looking around the world, but also going by inspiration that I was given where smaller windows would have made more sense. So for right now, I'm using these bigger arched windows, but I will be changing them out later. But I believe I submitted it with these bigger windows for the second review. I think they look nice, but that is not how it ended up being in the end. Playing with the colors now, I end up with this deep brick on the bottom floor and like a bluey purple on the top. Once again, not what I'm going to end up with, but I was really trying to figure out what color scheme I wanted to go for, playing around with different textures, the shades of the windows, the tables and chairs out front. I even swap out the table and chairs to get ones with umbrellas instead from base game, but that does not stay either because it was really important for me to use the new table and chairs that came specifically for the Boba Shop, so, you know. That changes. I also added some detail to the roof where I have different heights of the half wall to make it a little bit more interesting, and I'm playing around with more textures here. Now it's orange. I have a weird roof piece over the windows. I just really wasn't sure, and this was definitely a time for me to experiment to figure out what I wanted this space to be. So I'm just sectioning off a kitchen now. I decided to move the kitchen and the bathroom over a little bit, and that gave us some more space for some lounge area for the Boba Shop. So I tucked the sofa over there in the corner and just moving some of the doors and stuff around. I really like the new doors that we got with this pack. I think they're really pretty. And I'm getting a sign for behind the boba counter, and we have some more items. So I have these that I can now place behind the counter, which are so nice and so realistic. I also am trying to plan out for the fact that I was told that there was going to be a second display shelf item for the thrift store. So you'll see I have like 2 of them I just shoved in the front window. It's not supposed to be 2 of the same one. It's just there's another one the same size with different items on it that isn't in yet that they wanted me to take account of and like make sure I had it planned out to use it. So that's what I was doing there, and then trying to figure out the kitchen. I was just very unsure about this. It does end up shrinking a little bit, I'm pretty sure. It's a much smaller kitchen because I don't need to have like a full space there, and it gave more area for the couch outside. But what I mean is you don't need to have a like stove and everything in that kitchen. It's supposed to be just a fridge and sort of like a break room area for the employees so they could have a microwave, a coffee pot, all of that kind of stuff. So making some more space around all of the tables and stuff, so routing shouldn't be a problem for your Sims. I also added some base game lockers into the kitchen. That is one thing that does change that I am pretty sure I left them there. But in the final version, those ones are gone, and there are the new lockers that came with the high school pack actually in the bathroom, which I thought was pretty cool. So having a place to like store some stuff, whether that's like bathroom supplies, I had originally thought to put them in the kitchen because I was thinking like employees could keep their belongings in there like when they check into work. But I think it works in the bathroom too for the same reason, or for like cleaning supplies and stuff like that. But we did get a new mirror and a new sink in this pack, and of course I'm using those in the bathroom. I think they're really pretty. I also added a plant in here. I was just trying to add as many details as I possibly could and moving everything around with move objects. I'm not used to having to do, or not with move objects, moving things around without move objects. I'm not used to having to deal with everything turning red and you can't place items down. So that was definitely, there was a little bit of a learning curve there because I always have move objects on and just like to place things wherever. I try and make sure everything's functional for the most part, as long as it's something I intend to be an item your Sims can access. But in this build, everything had to be 100% functional. So I definitely had to fiddle quite a bit, especially with things that don't make sense, like your Sims aren't gonna need to access the paintings on the wall. Having to move those so that they're perfectly in line and things like that. And there were some things I didn't even think of. You'll probably see in a little while, for example, in the front window, I end up having those 2 large display shelves. One has clothing, the other one has like paintings and tables and stuff stacked on each other, which that one's not in yet. They're both just clothing ones right now. But I ended up putting some items in front of those so that they would be in the bay window so you can see them from outside. And I was like, oh, that shouldn't be a problem because, your Sims can't access them anyway, so it's fine. I didn't realize your Sims would want to go look at them, but then they couldn't get there, so it caused like a routing problem, so that ends up going away in the end as well. But I thought those items looked cool there, and you could see I just added, here are those items that I'm talking about. I just thought it would fill in the space and look cool from outside, but it caused a problem for your Sims, so those end up going away. I think I moved one or two of them around to other places. And here you can see the window problem I'm having. It doesn't make sense why it won't let me place the window over on the left side, but it just wouldn't. And I don't know how many times I tried. I eventually got it to work with like one of the windows, and so I ended up going with those, and I also thought that they worked better anyway. They were a little bit smaller, but back to changing the colors again. I just went through so many different colors. I really couldn't decide, but this is actually the color I go with in the end, this really light green color. I think it is really pretty. It's friendly, and I think it's neutral, but also like sort of bubbly, which works really well for the aesthetic I was going for this particular shop. So I was happy with that, but I don't end up keeping these windows. I end up using smaller ones that, of course, are base game, but they're not ones that I like ever use, and I forgot they existed. So you'll see that here shortly. And then also adding some more trees in here. The Sims team had suggested that perhaps the trees were a little bit more asymmetrical, which I totally agree with. I'm a big fan of asymmetry, but for some reason for a little shop like this, I assumed it should be symmetrical, but I changed it. And then just getting some flower pots on the outside of the windows. And you can see I'm just ignoring the left side. I'm like, there's no window there. I'll deal with it later. There's supposed to be a window there, but it's fine. We're going to pretend it's there. It's not, but for now, it's fine. And then over here by this bench, I actually at one point in time put down like a backpack and stuff on the floor. I was thinking it would look like it was being used. There was a student there like sitting down with their backpack. But the team was a little confused by that and said it looked like somebody like went missing and left their stuff there. So I did have to get rid of that. And I thought that was really funny because I hadn't even thought of that. But here I'm actually adding access to the top floor, so your Sims can actually come up here, and you can see that one window is placed way too high because it wouldn't let me place it lower. I do figure it out. It just takes a while. But the idea for up here was for it to sort of tell a story of something that was happening in this space, but not have too many items so it wouldn't conflict with performance or have too many Sims deciding to come up here. Which I feel like they might because there ends up being a stereo up here. I don't end up keeping the jukebox. But in one of our meetings, the team had suggested that maybe this could be like a dance studio space. Like they're renting out the top floor of the shop for dance classes. And I thought that that was a fun idea. So I definitely took that and ran with it. And so that's what the top floor is supposed to be used for. There's just a couple of items like chairs thrown about, a table, a big rug, and some of the modular pieces as well. And then, of course, landscaping was also very difficult because of not having move objects. So trying to figure that out, and I actually replaced all of the fences for the for half walls. And now the retail counter is in. It's so pretty. I was so excited to finally get rid of that big yellow block that was over here and be able to more fully visualize this space. And I think, yeah, now this other piece is in too. And it looks so cool, like the stacks of tables with like plates and so many other like thrift store pieces. I really love that they added those because that way you can kind of tell that story, but you're able to have like the stacked pieces in piles of things without needing to utilize move objects. For those of us that don't use those cheats or have more difficulty doing so, you can still tell that story without needing that. And of course, having it in the game where you can't launch things with those cheats in them. So now I'm just rearranging some stuff a little bit more for routing problems with some of the clothing racks and some of the items, getting rid of a couple of clutter pieces and just, trying to figure out the best way to have the final arrangement here. I also got in the wallpaper that is made specifically for this lot. It's so fun. It's like this paint drip rainbow. So I had to include that, of course. And that's pretty much it for this build. I'm just changing some final swatches and getting a couple more items here and there, making sure we have a fire alarm system, painting some things. And then we'll be going into the final tour of what it ended up being like. Like I said, there's a couple of things that changed, but I will show you those. So let's go take a look at ThrifTea. Okay, so welcome to ThrifTea. This is the thrift shop and Boba Shop here in the world of Copperdale that I was able to build for the official Sims 4 High School Years expansion pack, which I'm so excited about. So we're gonna take a full-on tour. I know you just saw the speed build, but I want to show you how it came out in the end, get like a full look in so you can see it a little bit closer, and also show off the couple of things that ended up changing between my final version I submitted and the version that is actually in the game. So here on the exterior, you can see we have this beautiful mural here, which is part of the collab that The Sims did with Depop to bring some of these really cool styles into the game. I knew there was going to be a mural here, so I left space for it. That was planned out, but I didn't know what it was going to look like or what it was for. So, well, I mean, I knew it was for selfies, but I didn't know it was in collaboration with Depop. Anyway, out front, if you are heading in, there is a clothing rack to kind of entice you to come look at, to see what the store has to offer. You can learn about fashion looks or create a fashion look, and there's a couple of tables and chairs out here, as well as the adorable little monkey with the boba. I love it so much. And then if we head on inside, right inside off to this side, we have tables and chairs and a couch and like lots of posters. It's very colorful in here. A nice lounging spot for your Sims to enjoy their boba. There's also a door to the bathroom right through here, and it looks like so. And just to the side of there is the area where you would actually go and order your boba. There's lots of like cookies and stuff here, all of your boba straws, all of the things you need to create that, lots of extra stuff in the back. These tiny little menus up here and the neon sign, which I think is so cute. And then through this little doorway is the kitchen space. It looks like one of the high schoolers is in here. We just have like a fridge, a coffee machine, a microwave, all the things you might need as an employee to just kind of make it through your day. Also, one of the things that did change is these lockers were placed into the bathroom. These are from the new pack, and I didn't have access to these, or I didn't think to put them in for some reason. I thought they were high school exclusive, like needed to be in the high school, so I didn't place them, but I think those look really cool here. Over on the other side, you can see lots of clothing racks, a chair, a table, lots of these like decorative pieces that have all sorts of stuff like stacked up. I think this is so realistic to what thrift stores are actually like. I was very excited about these items. There's two of them. There's this one right here, and then over in the front of the store you can see like some more clothes and stuff, shoes and shades and purses and all of that. So we have some extra shelves over here, and I have lots of like artwork up around the place, a little computer behind there. Your Sims will actually just like start going through the clothes, which is really cool. We're browsing fashion, which I think is so cool. And through here, we have our changing rooms. That is the downstairs. Upstairs, if you go up these steps right here, you are up in a little makeshift dance studio. So this had gone through a lot of changes, but it's very simple. It's just supposed to tell a little bit of a story. Like maybe some Sims have a little bit of a dance class up here. It's just like a rented space above the Boba Shop. So we have like some cubes, some decorations, a couple of chairs thrown about, our stereo, and some more chairs, as well as a corkboard of all of the things going on. So that is it for ThrifTea. I really hope you enjoyed this video, the speed build, the little tour at the end. I had so much fun building this, and it's still such a dream come true that I actually got to work on this for this pack. I cannot believe it. I'm so thankful. So thank you so much to EA for that opportunity, and thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this and you want to see some of my other builds that I did for this pack, or any of my builds in general, I do post quite a few of those here on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and click that bell to turn on notifications. You can also click the like button on this video. I'd really appreciate that. But with that being said, I'm gonna go. I will see y'all next time. Bye everyone.